I'm sorry.
Okay,
We're ready.
we're ready. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the City of North Miami. Today is Wednesday, July 19th, and we will call the meeting to order. It is 6:40 p.m., and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone will please rise. And Mr. Shields, you may lead us.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And may we have a roll call of board members?
Okay. Chairwoman Philippe,
Here.
Vice Chair McDermott,
Here?
Board Member Monestein,
Here.
Board Member Pierre Louise, Board Member Shields,
Here.
Board Member Montezir.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum now.
Thank you. And we'll move on with the announcement. Is Cynthia or Mr. L, would you do it?
I do it. Good evening. This is the summary of quasi-judicial procedures that apply to these items on the agenda. These rules apply to applications on specific parcels of land like zoning map amendments, special exceptions, variances, and conditional use requests. The board will sit like a court, hence the term quasi-judicial, reviewing the facts presented at the hearing, applying the adopted rules as explained by staff in the staff report and verbally. Board members can make site visits but must disclose the evidence upon which they intend to rely from that visit. Board members will disclose at the beginning of the hearing whether they have had communications with individuals on behalf of the applicant or otherwise, including who the communication was with and what the topic of the discussion was. All persons intending to speak to the board will be sworn by the clerk. The staff will make a presentation and the board may ask questions. The applicant will make a presentation including expert witnesses, if any, and the board may ask questions. When the public hearing is open, the public can make comments on the application limited to 2 minutes each. Citizen testimony must be fact-based, not opinion. The board may ask questions, and the applicant's attorney, if any, may ask other questions, cross-examination. Members of the public can decline to be cross-examined. The board deliberates based on the evidence presented. The board's decision must be based upon competent, substantial evidence, meaning based on the record, staff presentations, expert presentations, and fact-based comments by citizens, according to the standards for approval set forth in the City Code. The board may approve, deny, or continue the item. While staff previously read into the record emailed or mailed comments, we have concluded this is improper in quasi-judicial proceedings, as the person sending the comments is not sworn and there is no opportunity for cross-examination. Written comments submitted before the meeting are part of the record and available for review by the board. Lastly, we ask each of you to treat this proceeding with respect and proper decorum, no calling out, interrupting speakers, or disrupting the proceeding. Please give this proceeding the same dignity and respect as if you were in court. Disruptions are prohibited and enforceable pursuant to the City Code. Please also silence your cell phones. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that said, we will administer the quasi-judicial oath. Anyone tonight who is in the room who will be speaking on any item, whether it's for or against it, need to stand up and take the oath. So, you guys will be talking on any items? Yes, no? If you're not sure, do you have a case here? Are you here for an item?
We have questions about an item.
I'm sorry?
We have some questions about an item.
Okay, then you, yes, you should be
Yes.
sworn.
Okay, so everyone who is standing is because you're going to be speaking. So at this point, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
The answer would be,
Okay,
thank you, have a seat.
wonderful. Okay. Any amendment to the agenda?
No, ma'am. Well, ma'am, excuse me. That's a correction. Item SE 0223 in new petitions. The special exception to permit a private educational facility at 1225 Northeast 134th Street will be deferred per the applicant's request. No specific date to return has been offered by the applicant.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any communication, excuse me, approval of the minutes from May 17, I guess we were right. May 17, 2003.
Second.
Move- Thank you. Moved by Mr. McDermott and seconded by Mr. Shields. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any communications? And if there are communication between board members and the public, we will handle those per our attorney as each case come up. We will start with the continued cases, and they are 3 items linked together, three separate items, but they're the same applicant, which is SE-02-21. It's a nightclub special exception for Nouveau Cafe at 14135 Northwest 7th Avenue. And V-08-21, which is a minimum distance for Nouveau Cafe at 14135 Northwest 7th Avenue. And V-0921, which covers hours during which sales are allowed, consumption variance for Nouveau Cafe at 14135 Northwest 7th Avenue. Okay.
Good evening. Derek Cook with the City of North Miami's Community Planning and Development Department. As was stated by the chairperson, the items before you are continued items related to Nouveau Cafe located at 14135 Northwest 7th Avenue. As you are aware, this item came before the board in July of 2022 and received approval for the special exceptions and the variances that was mentioned. Special exception to allow for a nightclub operation after 11 o'clock. Special exception, a variance associated with distance separation from school, similar uses, from residential uses, from religious institution. And also they had a variance related to alcohol consumption deviation to allow for them to have alcohol consumption outside of the parameters set forth in the code, which specifically says when you can stop consumption of alcohol. At that time, the board did approve these applications with the caveat that the applicant would come back before the board within 6 months. It's been a little longer than 6 months. We're more than a year away. I know you had conversation about this item at your last meeting, and during that last meeting, there was concerns based on police reports. Subsequent to that meeting, we have had conversations with the police department, and we received word, contrary to what was discussed, that they had not had any calls or violations take place at that location within the last 2 years.
Okay.
So now before you, if you want to continue their operation. Mr. Hill, you have comment?
Yeah, just, I've got the orders, and the original hearing date was January of 2022. The June date might have been the 6-month review, first
Yes.
6-month review.
Okay. I know last time the applicants, they weren't there, and I guess it's because it's continuous. I'm not sure if they're here tonight.
A request was sent out specifically saying that they should be here tonight. I don't know if they are here.
Okay. All right. So I will open public hearing.
Sure.
If anyone here would like to speak for or against the item, now is your opportunity. I'll close public hearing. Board discussion.
Move to approve.
Okay. Move to approve by Ms. Monestein. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Shield.
And this is one at a time we're going to do this?
Yes. One at a
So-
time?
Mr. I
So-
think
Or do we
Held as
need,
a comment.
I suppose we should have a quick discussion on the nature of the board's action at this point. I'm not sure a motion to approve is it,
I
I
think
think
it's-
it's more like
it's a
take no
continue-
action.
yeah,
If you want to schedule it for further review in 6 months or a year, you could do that, but it's already been approved, so.
If I'm not
you're-
mistaken.
It was conditional approval, if I'm not mistaken, with the conditions outlined in section 3-504
It,
of the LDRs.
well, I've got the order.
Okay.
At least one, I can skip to all three. It says the applicant shall return to the Board of Adjustment in 6 months for review.
it's just to
So
make
if your
sure that there
review
was,
is positive,
yeah,
I think just a motion to say your review is positive and either no further review is necessary or schedule it for an additional review. And you can have one motion on all three items. I'm okay with that.
and the concern, I think, was last time that we didn't move forward with it was the fact that we thought that the police had an issue, but apparently not, so, I don't see very much
It's
happening
totally
over
within your
there.
discretion if you want a further review or not.
So then my motion would,
What, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Derek, at our last meeting, there was some report from the police department in reference to gunfire at this facility, so that report from the police department was inaccurate?
I would have to presume so, Mr. Medina. I spoke with Major Brooks, and my assistant, Ms. Raymond, spoke with, whom did you speak with? And both of them investigated to see if there were any violations, and they both cooperated that had not had any incidents at the location.
Okay.
so
So
then
no action?
So I guess the motion would be no action?
no further action necessary.
Necessary.
And I'll second that.
Well, we had a second from
Oh, did
Mr.
we?
Shield.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
All right,
Can I make a recommendation?
sure.
So while you may not think a review is necessary at this point, maybe it's appropriate for staff to monitor, and if they think it's appropriate for a further review, that they schedule something at some later date.
Yeah.
Just,
That sounds
Okay.
That's
logical.
fine. I do think that no matter what happens with a business such as this, if there are issues, the police department would be the first one
right.
to pick up on it because they would be called and then that would come to us or at least to some department. I will say though.
It's up to you.
You know,
So-
I think it's just a given. So for us to ask for them to come back, let's say another 6 months or a year, I think it's gonna be more of a thing, are they gonna be successful? Because I find these things are opening up in our city and closing just as fast, so. That's it? All right, so all three items, no further action. It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Chairwoman Philippe,
Yes.
Vice Chair McDermott,
Yes.
Board Member Monestein,
Yes.
Board Member Shields,
Yes.
and Board Member Montezir.
Yes.
We have, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to our next case. All right,
VO 122.
the VO 122, that was the one that was deferred, no?
That one before you, Madam Chair, is a minimum distance separation variance for the Nomi
Oh,
Bar
okay.
and Grill, which is located at 738 Northeast 125th Street. Our former colleague, distinguished colleague, Mr. Palmer, puts it here because they have a special exception for the new owner on this agenda related to allow it to operate as a nightclub. The variance runs with the property, so we just wanted to make you aware of the fact that they did receive a variance at the same meeting as Nouveau Cafe, in January of 2022 to allow for this distance separation associated with residents, similar uses, park, religious institution that you granted them. This will be automatically with this new application if you so choose to grant them the special exception that they have on the agenda tonight to allow for them to operate as a nightclub.
Staff's recommendation?
Well,
So, call
It-
it.
I don't know, Steph, because if they already have that approval on that, we just have to worry about the other,
Okay.
yeah, whether or not we continue.
So
Mr.
with that in
Howard, I see
mind,
you have something.
when I give the presentation, I'll go a little bit further into that.
Okay.
Okay.
So V-01-22, that's already been approved, but they're just back up here so that we have an idea with what's further down the road.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So we can move on to SE-03-23.
Correct.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Could I just have a clarification for the first one, for the nightclub? The motion was, I know that it was to allow, but
Yeah.
what was the exact language? Was it to take
Take
no
no
action?
action.
Motion to take no action, thank you.
All right. So SE-03-23, special exception to permit a nightclub use, 738 Northeast 125th Street.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As stated, the item before you is a request for a special exception to allow for a nightclub. The applicant was requesting the nightclub to operate from the hours of 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. The request is pursuant to Article 4, Division 2, Section 4-202 of the Land Development Regulations. The applicant hereby seeks a special exception to permit the operations of after the 11 p.m. with the food and/or music and entertainment constituting a nightclub use on the properties located within the C3 Commercial Zoning District. The surrounding uses, to the north, you have commercial, retail. To the east, you have City Hall and the civic uses. And to the south, you have commercial retail. And to the west, you have surface parking and commercial retail uses. The parcel is approximately 12,146 square feet, Zone C3. The purpose of this item is for the special exception which was mentioned. The site plan, as you see right here, this is integrated within an existing building with several uses as a nightclub to the west of it. To the east of it, you have a restaurant that is nestled between. As you all know, I know you're fully aware of it. If I can orient myself where I am, is right here to the west of us is the location. So the analysis as it relates to a special exception, we have 6 items that we consider as part of our review, and I would go over them so you can have it each one. A is the use is listed as a special exception in the district where the property is located. It is. And what is that saying is that that use requires a special exception, this requires a special exception, so they meet that criteria. B, there is appropriate provisions for access facilities adequate for estimated traffic from public streets and sidewalks so as to assure the public safety and to avoid traffic congestion. So as you're aware, there's a parking lot that is immediate behind this building that is situated between this building and the police station that is to the west of us. Also, as you know, we have a major parking lot that is probably about 200 feet from it, maybe a little more than that, 300 feet from it, that is to the east of us. And you have on-street parking that is right in front of the establishment on both sides of Northeast 125th. So they have plenty. And you know the sidewalk is at least 10 feet wide along there, so you have access for pedestrians to walk freely without any congestion and without completely creating any street congestion because of the available parking and the easy access to and from the property with several locations that you can move out of the property from. There are adequate parking areas and off-street parking for truck loading spaces and things to that effect. So I've already gone into that. We know we have adequate parking that is all around it. Another important element within the city, yes,
I'm
Ms.
sorry, I think the slide was moved forward. You're still on, there you go.
Yeah, okay. So, so is another important element in this area. This is located in our parking, what I would call it, parking relief area, lack of a better way to describe it, not using the word in the code. Thank you. And where that is, it allows within certain areas of the city that for new development, redevelopment, you don't have to provide parking if they're within 200 feet of a municipal parking areas in which this property is. There is suitable landscaping or fencing along side lots or rear lot lines adjacent to the residential or residentially zoned area. This is not applicable to this area. This is located in the midst of a commercial environment, and the site is as it is, pretty much, hardscape all around it. E, the proposed special exception is a reasonable in terms of logical, efficient, and economical extension of public services and facilities such as public water, sewer, police, and fire protection and transportation. So, we're in the hub of our city. They already have all of those services readily available to that site, so it wouldn't be adding anything in addition. Additionally, the former use of this site was a restaurant nightclub use as well. F, the proposed special exception will constitute an appropriate use in the area and will not substantially injure or distract from the use of the surrounding properties or from the character of the neighborhood. So, as I've stated in the previous one, this has already been functioning in that capacity now. This is just a continuation of this. Of course, we're also in an urban environment where such uses would not have any negative impact. The important element of that is, to what we spoke of earlier, is that they did have to seek variances as it relates to close proximity to park use, religious institution, residential use, things to that effect, and school use. All of this is within the parameters. You have 2,500 feet within and 1,500 feet respectively for that. They received that variance for that use because of the proximity. You know the environment that we're in downtown. It is the nature of our downtown area that we have multiple uses all around it, that you would not be able to meet that distance separation. And they have no open violations for this property. With that in mind, we have conditions if you so choose to approve this item. Staff recommends approval with these following conditions pursuant to Article 5, Division 9, Section 5-911, and Section 5-912. Obtain a music and entertainment license that requires approval by the city manager or designee. 2, that pursuant to LDR's, the Land Development Regulations, Section 5-907, that the existing minimum distance separation variance is maintained and ratified by the Board of Adjustments. 3, that the applicant update the certificate of use and business tax receipt to reflect nightclub use with the board approval, hours to be identified on the certificate of use. 4, that pursuant to LDR's Section 5-913, that the applicant must comply with the sale of alcohol standards. Thank you, that's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Is the applicant present? Okay, come up. Hi, please state your name and address, please.
Good evening. Edwin Matherman, 738 Northeast 125th Street.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to what Mr. Cook said?
No.
No. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Hill?
So I'd just like to add 2 points. One is to note, which obviously you're all aware, those, we have a new board member. So this is not a variance application. This is a special exception application. So no hardship showing is required as would be necessary for a variance. This is more of a compatibility application. And the other thing I would point out is that built into the first condition, which requires the music and entertainment license, if you go to page 5 of the staff report, there are 8 or 10 different obligations that the establishment would have in order to satisfy and maintain that license as well. So it's all about being a good neighbor and establishing a good operation.
They had a nightclub over there at one point, but let me just open and then we'll do a discussion. Thank you. Public hearing is open. Anyone for or against? Now is your opportunity to speak. Come on. Were you sworn in?
I don't think I was.
That's what I remembered. Come up. And you could raise your right hand and you'll get sworn in.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address.
Please list your name and address.
Jerry Rubenstein, excuse me, 732-34 Northeast 125th Street, Billy's Pub 2, the owner. I don't have any problem with the lounge coming in. The only issue that we saw just this last Saturday, when they talk about parking, excuse me, I lost my voice a week ago. I'm trying to get it back. It's slow. The parking was overflowing. It was, they went to our neighbor's parking lot, private parking lot across the street, started using that. Not allowed to do that. And they were charging $20 for parking until my general manager went over and told them you can't reserve spots and you can't charge for parking in a public parking place. So that's the only problem that I have with that. I mean, I can see where we're open till 5 a.m. So, and we have no problem. We had no problem with NOMI before that. Just the issue was the parking and being able for everybody to access that parking.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
So one of the obligations that they have under the music and entertainment license is to show that there's sufficient parking. So that is something that will be handled by the administration when they review that license.
Okay. And maybe since the applicant tonight has heard the situation, they could start thinking of a plan to handle that. Public hearing is closed. Board discussion?
Yes, I have a question, going back to the parking. You mentioned that. Yes, I have a question going to the parking. You mentioned, administration has, I guess they have a procedure or guidelines to determine adequate parking. Now, when you have two establishments adjacent to one another, how do you know who's consuming what? Like, who is using more parking? Like, how is that being determined?
Thankfully, that's their responsibility and not mine.
So if I may, through the chairperson, so the situation is, as I spoke during the presentation, they are in the zone where they don't have to acquire any additional parking because they are within 200 feet of public parking. For me, based on what the owner had just stated, it's not necessarily an issue with parking, it's an issue with people wanting to park close to the establishment and not wanting to walk anywhere. Because you know, as well as I do, sir, that it's parking right there, which is going to be wide open right here on Northeast 8th Avenue at that time of the evening. And, you know, so it's plenty of parking. It's whether if you want to make that walk, that which is probably about maybe a football field or not. And I think it's also important that was stated is that you shouldn't be charging people for public parking, for a public parking area. So if y'all want to have a contemplation about a condition as it relates to parking and how they need to orient that and maybe have a monitoring of it so people, you're welcome to do it. It's, you know, it's even on-street parking on that, I think that's 7th Avenue right there that you could use. It's just all about, you know, people just wanting to walk, don't want to walk a few feet to get somewhere.
That was it, Madam Chair, for me.
Any other board discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the item.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. McDermott and seconded by Ms. Modestine.
Quick question. Approval, obviously pursuant to staff
What's
recommendations.
Recommendations, yes.
We don't say that enough.
Yes, pursuant to staff recommendation. Okay, all right.
Roll call.
Roll call?
Okay. Chairwoman Philippe,
Yes.
Vice Chair McDermott,
Yes.
Boardwoman Modestine,
Yes.
Boardwoman Pierre Louise,
Yes.
Board Member Shields,
Yes.
and Board Member Mondesir.
Yes.
Okay, that is, the item passes unanimously.
And just to be on the record, yes, our board member, Blythe Pierre Louis, is present.
Is present, I marked it. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Next case, which is V-04-23, variance to the required landscaping for parking and vehicular use areas in the PD2, 14800 Solomia Way. Solomia.
Good evening. Again, I'm Derek Cook with Community Planning and Development. As stated by Madam Chair, the item before you is a variance associated with landscape reduction for required, specifically for 5-foot landscaping along public right-of-ways, and the applicant will not be able to meet that based on their modification to their site. What they're doing is expanding the site. It's on there to impart more gas pump area and park in and for the vehicle circulation of the property. So since I'm here for a moment, what we have before you is the site plan. In that site plan, you have colored in a bluish color is the area where which they will be deviating from the setback, and that would be going from 2 to 3 feet to 0 at those locations. So that's really the extent of the deviation, along with having hedging and things to that effect. This property also would need to go through the Development Review Committee process, where it would be tasked with meeting certain requirements for hedging, and where they can get some landscaping, which this is concrete jungle, we'll be imposing that where we can. So that's just to give you an overview. So more specifically, Dev in it. So this is a variance to Article 5, Division 12, Section 5-1208A of Chapter 29 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Land Development Regulations, LDRs, to allow for a reduction in the required landscaping area, including 1, a reduction of the landscape buffer to 0 where 5 feet is required. 2, a reduction to trees to 0 where there need 1 tree for every 30 linear feet is required. 3, and to elimination of a hedge, wall, or other durable landscaping barrier where 1 is required between vehicular use area and a right-of-way. In conjunction with the expansion of the Costco fuel service station expansion, said variants are to be reviewed under criteria set forth in Article 3, Division 6, Section 3-606 of the LDRs. So, the project is information background. The applicant is requesting a hardship relief of this, for the variance to permit a reduction in landscaping as stated. To reduce the required landscape buffer by 333 square feet, which is that blue area that I showed to you a little earlier. The LDR is required for a visual and landscaping barrier between vehicle uses and the right-of-way. The existing site is a non-conforming state in that it does not provide a buffer of 5 feet, and it does not provide 1 tree for every 30 linear feet of hedging in the site. So let's speak to that. So what we have here is, this is in the Solomere project. Solomere went through a conditional use permit process that allowed for them to do this development. And within the confines of that, they were given relief on what they would need to meet. And where they give that relief, they don't need to meet it. Landscaping wasn't one of them. But what they have been doing is to meet their criteria is where they don't meet landscaping on one site, they overcompensate on another site to balance for that lack of trees, or in one instances, they have more than 30% of palm trees. So what they would have to do by the end of the site is to make sure that when it's all said and done, they don't have any more than 30% of palms on the site as a total. And they need to keep that tabulation, what they do with the Community Planning and Development Department. So that's to give you a context on them and their trees and things to that effect, and how they could have, things can be looking posh in some places, in other areas it's robust with landscaping. So as you can see, the surrounding area to the north is retail, vehicle dealership. To the north, to the east, you have high-density residential. To the south, you have undeveloped and a fitness center, which is under review and has been approved to right there on the south edge of the property. If I had a point, I will let you know. Down at the end of the property, they have a new fitness center that they're going to put in there. And to the west, you have the City of North Miami commercial area. The property is approximately 5,916 square feet. It's zone PD2. The proposed variance is to permit a reduction to the non-conforming landscape buffer. As showed earlier, this is the site plan. As you see, you have the new facilities going in on the east side of the property, which is going to bleed into that existing landscaping with hardscape uses. And also with that, as I stated, it's going to allow for vehicle circulation. So as you're aware, when you're doing an analysis for variances, you have 6 criteria that we review the proposal on. To reach a recommendation of approval by the staff, the applicant would need to meet 4 of the 6 criteria. As you can see here, based on our analysis, you're looking at 2 of the 6 criteria have been met. And these are as follows. Special conditions and or circumstances exist which are particular to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district. So in that criteria, we stated no, that there were no special conditions that are related to this site that are unique to it. 2, you have, you have the unusual circumstances or conditions necessitating the variance request are present in the neighborhood and are not unique to the property. Again, we say no. There's no unique situation in the area that precipitate the need for this variance. 3, that the requested variance maintains the basic intent and purpose of the subject regulations, particularly as it affects the stability and appearance of the city. We say yes to this. And why we say yes to this, in conjunction with the property on the east and on the north side of the property, there's a landscape buffer that is integrated within the right-of-way. On the east side of it, of the property, is between 10 to 15 feet wide, and on the west side of the, on the north side of the property is between 5 to 6 feet wide that is existing within the right-of-way. So the reduction of the landscaping that they're doing on site is complemented by a landscape buffered area that is within the right-of-way of the property. 4, the literal interpretation of the provisions of these LDRs would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of these LDRs. No. So by us not giving this variance wouldn't prevent them from doing what they're already doing, which is operating the Costco and the gas station that is already there. 5, the variance request is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, structure, or building. Again, it wouldn't prevent them from using the site. It would restrict their ability to add on to expand the site, but it wouldn't prevent them from being able to operate. 6, the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of these LDRs, and such variance will not be injurious to the area involved. So we say yes, they meet that criteria. By them doing this slight modification wouldn't be injurious to the area. It wouldn't be out of harmony with which is already existing in the area. So we don't see that how this would be out of character with the intent of the LDRs. In light of these findings, staff renders no recommendation of the requested variance to the Land Development Regulations, Article 5, Division 12, Section 5-1208, to allow a reduction in the required landscaping requirements for vehicle areas adjacent to a right-of-way line on the subject property. However, should the board grant the variance, staff requests the following conditions be included. 1, the applicant obtain a building permit, landscape and tree removal permit, and all other necessary licensings prior to starting site work. 2, that all other standards of Article 5, Division 12 shall apply. 3, that the applicant adheres to all conditions, including landscape conditions, provided by the Development Review Committee at the time of the Development Review Committee site plan approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. All right. Is the applicant here?
Good evening. I'm Max Kaplan with Thomas Engineering, representing Costco Wholesale Corporation. We appreciate the presentation, Mr. Cook.
Please state and address. It could be the address
Oh.
of the business.
6300 Northwest 31st Avenue, Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Thank you.
So the intent of this project is to basically add an additional 8 fueling positions to the existing fueling canopy at the Costco site. In doing so, that increases the service capacity, and as you know, with the fluctuation in gas prices and increase in population down here, the capacity has greatly increased. And when this facility was originally constructed, I guess the original capacity has expanded. So in doing so, expanding this canopy further east encroaches into the buffer. And as you can see on these diagrams, one of them was pulled up. Yes. As you can see, it's
Use the mic.
it's a very small area that's encroaching into the required buffer, represented by these blue areas. And over here on the north, there's actually a lack of a buffer in the existing condition. We're simply expanding that further east. And over here, just due to the necessary vehicular circulation around the fuel pumps on the east side, we just have to create a small wedge on that east buffer. And all the existing landscaping is being relocated. We're not losing any trees. Existing trees are either being relocated elsewhere on the site, and some are being relocated in the along the remaining buffer and within the right-of-way on the east side. And as you can see based on the aerial, there's already a significant buffer along the right-of-way. It's varies. It's about 15 feet on the east side, and on the north side, it's about 5 to 6 feet. So in the existing condition, even though the buffer will not be provided on the site, there's significant right-of-way. And these are not major thoroughfares, these are small access roads. So there's significant separation from the sidewalk and from the drive aisles. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. I will first open public hearing. Anyone for or against? Public hearing is closed. Okay, board discussion, do you have any questions for the gentleman?
No questions, but certainly comments.
Go ahead.
I thought it was a very clear presentation, both from staff and the gentleman representing Costco Wholesale. Appreciate it. I have not spoken with anybody, but I'm certainly a proud Costco card member, and I can say I get gas at this station probably twice a month, and I have seen the positive aspects of the current expansion already. That's happened around, I think, on the southern part of that parcel, and I understand why you want to make those additional expansions and need the variance on the buffer right there. I can say, even, just as a anecdote, like I've gone as early as like 6:30 in the morning to this gas station at the height of prices being crazy, and there literally is a line around the block all the way to US 1 on the northern side of the property because they don't have enough stalls at the gas station. And similarly, there's a considerable amount of traffic on the south eastern side of the property as well. And my concern also with the expansion of Sole Mia, there's a lot of stuff going on in this area. We don't know where gas prices are going to go. And I personally see this as a very de minimis, small change that honestly is not going to heavily impact in a negative way anybody in this area, but if anything, positively impact this area by allowing a better flow of traffic so that more people can get in and out of this gas station at Costco with more stalls being built, and so that there's less traffic along Sole Mia Way. Because my additional fear is with the new healthcare center coming just south of the property, with additional apartments coming online southeast of the property, that us not making this change now could have some negative repercussions in this area with traffic. So that, given also just recapping that I think this is a very small de minimis change that isn't going to significantly negatively impact anybody in this area, I'm not going to make a motion here because I want to get other comments if there are any, but I will end up making a motion that we recommend approval with staff's specific recommendations that were made in Mr. Cook's presentation.
Okay, well, after you make the motion, I'll second it. I agree with all your points.
I've got to hear that at least whatever trees you have there, that they're not gonna be discarded, that you'll find other places to put them on the property, because we do know what we're going through. And if people are online, yeah, you need some shade. This concrete city is not it. Anyway. All right. Any other comment?
No.
All right, well, the person who'd like to make a motion.
Okay. I move that we approve this variance along with staff's specific recommendations that were presented this evening.
And I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Shields, seconded by Mr. McDermott. Roll call, please.
Chairwoman Philippe,
Yes.
Vice Chair McDermott,
Yes.
Board Member Monestein,
Yes.
Board Member Pierre-Louis,
Yes.
Board Member Shields,
Yes.
and Board Member Mondesir.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right. Project's been
Congratulations.
approved.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Have a good night.
Okay. All right. Old business? Anybody? Mr. Cook, you have an old business?
No old
No.
business, ma'am.
New business?
No new business.
Yes, you do. We don't have Cameron
Oh, okay, yes.
or Isaiah.
I'm still in withdrawal, so so that's true.
Sorry.
Judge, if you wasn't aware that we have lost two more valuable staff members, in Cameron Palmer and Isaiah Vassin. They both pursued new opportunities and were granted those opportunities and have moved on. And of course, we'll be greatly missed. And we, I and I believe other staff members also agree that we wish the very best for them. And we are actively looking to hire new people, hopefully sooner than later, because the business of the city has not stopped, and developers are still wanting to come in and develop. So I need the staff.
Everywhere. So does that mean we have cases for next month?
We do. If we have quorum, we will have a meeting on August the 16th.
Okay, so at this time, my vice chair would probably chair it, because I will be away with the grandkids. First grandson going off to college, so I'm taking him to campus.
Wow.
Aw.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
August
Does any
16th.
other board member know whether
Yes.
that they will be?
I'll be present.
I intend to be present.
I'll be here.
Okay, so we need, probably Lumana? Is Lumana on? You'll check that, Mr. Cook?
I was actually going to check to see, because I happened to notice that her name was not the
Not on
last
there?
minutes that her name isn't on here.
Hmm.
So I'll have to confirm whether or not she's still a board
Okay.
member.
Because if not,
Because I see in place of number 7, it says vacant. And I know that we currently have, we received applicants from the clerk's office for members for people who would like to serve on this board.
So August 16th.
Mhm.
August 16th.
Okay, on my
if you have
calendar.
one more.
Do I say that?
Move to adjourn?
Oh.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, you'll let us know, we'll figure it out.
Yes, we'll let you know. I was going to check and see who we have on the list right now. So,
Yep.
okay, thank you.